everyone. Welcome to Center Court. We have a fireside chat with someone who has done a magical job at a magical school. Ilian Mihov is the dean, has been the dean for 10 years, which is a very long stint indeed to have a very big imprint on one of the world's best business schools by far, INSEAD. And Ilian, I want to ask you, after 10 years as dean, you're stepping down this summer, and I wonder, as you look back over your shoulder at your accomplishments, what are you most proud of?
Well, first, John, thank you very much for having me here. It's a great privilege to be here. It's a great privilege to know you. And over the last 10 years, we've had so many conversations, and it's interesting how everything evolved and the world changed in these 10 years. I think that, to answer your question, the last 10 years, the school accomplished a lot of things. I personally think that when we started in 2013 in the school talking about business as a force for good and thinking how can we integrate, how can we make sure that we teach our MBA students all the necessary capabilities, all the knowledge, all the competencies that they need, to be great managers, but at the same time, we give them the idea of how to think about the broader picture, the society, the environment, and all these things, and how to search for win-wins solutions, but also sometimes figure out what is the right trade-off. So we created in 2018 our Kaufman Global Institute for Business and Society, and this year we decided to change our curriculum and integrate sustainability in all our core courses and create a capstone on sustainability. And I think that basically bringing into management education, in a school like INSEAD, more of these on the top of everything else. So actually the MBA is becoming more and more challenging because you still have to know finance and accounting and economics. But on the top of this, giving you this awareness of what else is out there, I think that this is something that I really value and appreciate.
And with both, business as a force for good and sustainability, you're really riding on the top of a wave, a generational wave, because I think we've seen a generation of people who are passionate about trying to improve the world and society. And now sustainability and climate change is right at the top of the agenda. And you have managed to make INSEAD at the top of the agenda. And it's interesting that you go right to that. I mean, you opened up an office, a campus in San Francisco. You launched a master's in management program. You got through COVID, which was a nightmare for everybody everywhere. In fact, I remember after your San Francisco opening, you went back to Europe with COVID, unfortunately. And that's just some of the small accomplishments. You raised more money than any other dean in the history of the school by far. You're on a major improvement of facilities. And you've kept the MBA very timely and very on the button. So you really got to feel really good about what you've done over the past 10 years as you move into your sabbatical and go back to being an academic without all the worries of being a dean. I wonder, what are your favorite memories over those 10 years?
Well, I think that what is really exciting is when you see our alumni, our students, our faculty, getting together. A lot of these events like reunions, alumni reunions, the energy, or we had in London, we had a month ago, 6 weeks ago, we had a forum where 700 alumni came from all over the world.
Wow.
Interacting with the faculty. Some of the students came as well. So to be honest, I think that the most exciting thing is to see what I've called before the global learning community in action. So one of my objectives from day one, which I did not understand at the time the importance of this, but the objective was to create this community where the faculty will interact obviously with each other, but also with the alumni and with the students. And we have alumni in 175 countries and very deep networks in many countries, a lot of knowledge, a lot of expertise. At the same time, we create a lot of knowledge at INSEAD with our faculty. So if we could connect this, then we will create bigger impact, and actually we will be further at the frontier of management education. So to me, these moments when I see like a faculty retreat and all the buzz around it, or we see the alumni forum or the students graduating, is just very emotional and very exciting moment.
At the beginning, I described INSEAD as a magical place, and I really believe that it is. And I wondered if you could articulate why it's so magical. What is it about INSEAD that's not only truly unique, but that makes it so special?
It's a very good question and not an easy one, because there is something that is intangible, that is difficult to pinpoint. I think that there's this entrepreneurial spirit. There is this idea that we could do, we could do much more. You don't feel when you go to INSEAD, as a faculty member, you don't feel like, I'm just going to my workplace and let me just write my papers and let me do my teaching. You feel like, okay, let's see, what do we do next? What is the next big thing in management education? It could be through your work, but it could be also, okay, let's open a hub in San Francisco, because I think it will be great to get our entrepreneurs closer to Silicon Valley, and Silicon Valley closer to INSEAD. The most recent idea, I mean, I always say INSEAD is the most complicated business school, and every single day we think how to make it even more complicated. And we're very successful. So the newest idea was 2 weeks ago, 14 faculty members went to Kenya and to Rwanda. So in Rwanda, they met with the president, Paul Kagame, and with others, with ministers, with the Rwanda Development Board, with the idea of how can INSEAD play a bigger role in the education, in the development of talent in Africa. And again, it's like, and the faculty are so excited about these things. So it's not like the dean says, okay, let's just go in that direction. So I think that the magical part comes from this buzz, this idea that probably started from our founding in 1959. Georges Doriot wanted to create a school that will bring together the European nations, with people from countries that were fighting with each other, the Brits, the Germans, the French, and say, let's just do something together. Let's build businesses together instead of fighting with each other. And this spirit is still there in the students, in the alumni, in the faculty. And I think this is what makes it magical.
Yes. It's often been described America as a melting pot, but when I think of business schools, I think of INSEAD as the quintessential melting pot because of the diversity of your students and how they come from every single far-flung part of the world. And not only come, but when they get to the school and they get to the campus, either in Singapore or Fontainebleau, they bond. And that's not to be taken for granted, because when people from very different backgrounds, with different languages, different cultures, different traditions, come together, there's often some sense of conflict because they're so different. But they're coming together for a singular purpose, to improve themselves for personal development, because they want to play a meaningful role in the world. And I think that helps bond them in a way that's kind of magical in and of itself. How do you explain how you can bring together people from all these various cultures and have a harmonious culture from it.
I think that it's again, it started with Georges Doriot, with the idea that warring nations. I mean, think about this 1959. You know, people that will come to INSEAD, there will be probably their parents were fighting against each other and shooting at each other in the war, in the Second World War. So what we do in class, at school, we actually put them in groups where we try to maximize friction. They don't know this, but we're deliberately thinking, you know, how we can create a group that actually the diversity is visible there. It doesn't have to be just national diversity. It's not just putting, you know, somebody from Palestine with an Israeli and so on. It is actually the, you know, for example, sometimes people with different backgrounds, like a British historian with a French engineer, and it's, you know, just watch and be amazed. But we tell them, look, you know, you're in this group, and if you don't learn how to work with other people who are not like you, who might be coming from, you know, the other side of a warring nation, then you'll never be able to learn this. And they hate it in the beginning. It's true that, you know, one of our alums had said this in a speech, in a graduation speech. He said, you know, when I came to INSEAD, we had these groups, and I was wondering, why do I have to sit with these people and do something in 8 hours that I can do in 1 hour by myself and just get annoyed? And then he said 20 years later, this was probably one of the most important experiences that I had at INSEAD. You know, these are my best friends now.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, when you step back and you look at the MBA program, which of course is the flagship program of INSEAD, what would you say are the key strengths? Obviously, the diversity of the class is core to it. The fact that you have multiple campuses on multiple continents is a core strength as well, because no other school really has that, where you can start in France and go to Singapore, or start in Singapore and go to France. And then, of course, you have your Dubai campus as well, and then your San Francisco campus, where you have Silicon Valley immersions and things. What are some of the other key strengths of the MBA program?
So I think that one of the really big successes of INSEAD that is sometimes not visible from outside is somehow the synergy between teaching and research. So let me explain this a little bit, because in 1990s, our dean at the time, Antonio Borges, decided that INSEAD was a little bit too much on the teaching side, not so much on research. So he wanted to change the school, and it was difficult. It was painful, because he'll hire 15, 16 faculty a year with a faculty size at the time of 60 to 80 people. So imagine how many people all of a sudden come in.
Oh, wow.
And, you know, and say, you know, it's very important for you to do research. So research is the important thing. That's what brings the reputation of the school. And I think that he was right to a great degree. But what I think that nobody expected to see was that all these researchers were overwhelmed by the teaching culture. So they wanted those to be great teachers. So today, when you look at the best teacher nominations, when you look at how many of our great researchers are also, you know, getting 5 out of 5 in teaching, it's amazing. And I think that this is really important, because being a researcher helps you continuously innovate. You know what is at the frontier of management theory, management knowledge, and you can bring it into the classroom in a way that is relevant and you know, people can understand. So I think that in the last 10 years, we changed the curriculum. The electives are continuously being changed. So data science, sustainability, AI, all these courses appear naturally. But also we changed the curriculum in the core courses, and continuously being updated in a very effective way. And if I say one of the things that I'm really happy and proud about, is that in 2011, I was dean of faculty at the time, I was not dean of the school. We created this initiative for learning, innovation, and teaching excellence, ILITE for abbreviation. But it's basically a place where we help our professors transition into teaching much faster with coaching, with observations, with video recordings, and so on. So today, you go into the classroom, you see a second-year assistant professor, and many people say, oh, this person cannot teach at all. To the contrary, they are the ones who win the best teacher awards because we train them. So I think that the quality of teaching at INSEAD has increased significantly. The students, when you ask them at the end, they will say, it's really amazing. Not everyone, there are always exceptions, but there are many professors who are really impactful, and students love this.
That's great. Now, I wonder how much emphasis you put on personal development and leadership in the program. It's a very intensive 10-month program. It's an accelerated MBA. You're packing a lot into it. The revision, as you pointed out earlier, which puts sustainability front and center, that's another add-on. How much time how do you approach personal development?
Yeah, I think that's another great question, because today, when I look at our MBA program, I don't know what is happening, but you still have to learn all these things. You still have to know finance, accounting, as I said, economic strategy and so on. But on the top of this, you have to build digital transformation, all the AI, data science. You have to know these things, to manage people properly. Then you have to know sustainability, because your investors will be asking, what are you doing about ESG this, ESG that, and so on. So you have to know all these things. And then on the top of this, to be a good leader, you have to be very reflective about how you lead. You have to be very self-aware, which can only come through personal development. So in fact, it was the previous review of the curriculum in 2017. So the first curriculum review that we did during my deanship, we decided to introduce this personal leadership development program, PLDP, where we're using coaching. So we have coaches that work with the students. Most of the time, they will be working with the team, with the group, but also there are one-on-one sessions in order to build this muscle of self-awareness.
Right.
And I think that this is very important. That's why I think that it is a great question, because when you look at the mistakes that some CEOs have made, or there's some calamities out there. There were some bad intentions in a few cases, but in many cases, I think that people did not have the self-awareness to ask themselves, am I doing this right? Should I consult with somebody? Should I? Right. So in order to minimize bad outcomes, I think that self-awareness, empathy, all these software skills have to be developed alongside with the competencies. So we have a PLDP program that, it's working well. I think it's, you can always do more, but again, as you said, 10-month program, what can you actually put into this?
Exactly. Well, what if you had to say, what are the 3 key leadership skills you believe students need to be successful in business? What would they be?
I think that, I don't know whether it's a skill, it's a competency, but you have to have the basic competencies. You have, in order to be respected, you have to have the knowledge of finance and accounting. There is no doubt. So, people sometimes trying to be creative, innovative, and so on, and then they start seeing that the employees, the other managers, lose confidence when they cannot really communicate properly about the finances or others. So I would say that the core competencies have to be there still. I think that to me, the understanding also the decision-making process and biases, how you yourself can fall in a trap of, being anchored or some other of these famous biases out there. this is again coming from the personal leadership development and through other tools.
Right.
So make sure you're aware of this. In my view, empathy is becoming more and more important, making sure that you understand what they want, and you can understand also when they're not doing well, why they're not doing well, and giving them some space. It's related also a little bit to inclusiveness.
Yes.
Being able to deal with diversity. It's like, it's not going to get, we're not going to become more homogeneous. We're going to become more diverse and more different than before. So I think that is important. And again, what I started with in the beginning, understanding the boundaries of business and how then business affects the bigger society and the environment, and trying to create value for the company, and at the same time think about the value that you as a CEO create for the society, for the environment. I think that that will become more and more relevant. But the most important skill, and I think that I must have said this in the previous interview, maybe in my first interview with you, the most important skill that we teach, and we hope that will stay with our MBS, is thinking or problem-solving skills. Because if you think about this, there are continuously new things coming on, and sometimes there are fads, sometimes they're changing trends. So sometimes it's difficult to tell the difference between the two.
Sure.
But we are developing managers and executives who will be out there for the next 20, 30 years. I have no idea, and I think that nobody has any idea how the world will look like 20 years from now, 30 years from now.
True.
But I know one thing, that thinking will still be in fashion.
Yes.
And if it is not, then the AI has taken over, and then there is no point in any further discussions. But yeah, I think problem-solving skills, thinking skills, how do you solve problems, especially when you don't have all the information that you need? The perfectionists that, like me, that will say, I want to see all the data before I make a decision. It's like, it's not possible.
It's really true. And in your new revamp of the MBA program, where you're putting more emphasis on sustainability, business analytics is part of that as well, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. We have a few courses on business analytics already, and we're developing more in the skills. And yeah, but the students of today, they have to learn all that, even if they don't become programmers and but they have to know how to work with big data sets and what you can extract from the data to help your decisions.
Right, exactly. And what's your approach to teaching sustainability?
So it varies across different fields, right? So there are, for example, in accounting, we are looking at how can you start integrating the impact into your accounts. So what is there was this initiative at Harvard Business School about impact-weighted accounts that will price water or pollution or employment creation. So there is positive externalities as well that businesses create, and how then you can adjust your accounts. Or if you look at operations, how can you think about closed loop supply chains or circular economy? And what is the right way to do the sequencing of the changes? In economics, obviously, we teach about the solutions to these externalities from a policy perspective. And, people have to start thinking, carbon tax. If things continue in this way, where the carbon tax can go. But I think that what I'm really happy with the new curriculum change is that we, in each one of the core courses, we develop a module or two around this. But the really exciting thing is the capstone, where at the end of the course, at the end of the MBA program, the students will have few days when they will be looking at a case of a company that tries to solve some of these problems from operational point of view, strategic point of view, finance point of view, accounting, and so on, so that all the knowledge that they have gained during the year should be used in a practical case. And I think that it is important because then when they go to their companies, they will be already conditioned a little bit on how can I actually change this company. John, you're muted. You're on mute.
And like every good capstone, it's taking all the skills that you've learned in the different disciplines and integrating them together to find the solution, which is a beautiful thing.
Well, I mean, again, we're not going to solve the world problem with this, but I think that moving in that direction and then receiving feedback and learning from others as well. I mean, what other schools are doing, we've always been very open to learning. We think that, again, for us, business is a force for good, and all these business and society initiatives, they're not, for me, I don't want this to be a differentiating thing for INSEAD, because if we're the only ones who are doing this, then there's something wrong.
True.
But I see now more and more schools talking about these things and integrating it. So, and we're learning from them as well.
Right. How do you see graduate business education evolving in the coming years? You're going to step back from this leadership role and go back into your role as an academic, but I wonder, looking ahead over the next 5 to 10 years, what do you see?
So, I mean, I think that these programs, the MBA program, it is an amazing program. I mean, I see how people react in the beginning, how they're transformed, how they speak about this 20, 30 years later. So I think it will stay. It will, as we know, there is a trend towards earlier education. So we see that the demand for management education at undergraduate level and pre-experience level is growing. It's actually in the master in management program, the pre-experience level program, it's actually growing very fast. And that's where maybe the management education will go in 10, 20 years. I don't know that. But overall, I think that the demand for management education at all stages is growing. So the distribution inside might change. And that's part of the lifelong learning. So I can see that, today somebody may decide, okay, let me just do a master in management program so that I'm done with my degree programs by the age of 23. And then usually in these pre-experience programs, you don't have as much of this leadership development, the soft skills, because they don't have the experience from working in teams or managing people. Right. So it's a bit more difficult. It's theoretical to say, this is what you do when you have a conflict in the team, rather than, okay, I had a conflict in the team and this is what I did. So it's a very different experience. So in the min levels, we do a lot of the technical skills and a lot of hard skills. We do, of course, organizational behavior still a little bit and so on. But then these people will have the possibility 10 years down the road or 5 years down the road, to take a online course or go back for executive education. And the demand there is just exploding. It's so I think that there might be a little bit of a shift.
And one of the things that we've learned through the pandemic, I think it accelerated the timetable for long distance learning, which makes it easier to develop lifelong learning products for people who need them on demand.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that because also, the change is accelerating. It's, people are saying, well, everybody's saying this thing, all the time, people saying, oh, this time it is different. And, we live in the spectacular times. And I even use a quote from Forbes from 1929. But people thought right before the Great Depression, how we live in this unique period of science and invention that nobody has seen. Of course, they were talking about telephone, telegraph, electricity, and so on. But but if you look at the grand scheme of things, and I tell my students, imagine you're in Fontainebleau in 1150, and they ask you, how do you think Fontainebleau will look at 1200, 50 years later? It will be roughly the same, right? So you look at it's, maybe there'll be one more wing in the chateau and things like this, but it's not going to change. If I ask somebody now, you're sitting in Fontainebleau, and imagine how the world or Fontainebleau even will look in 2073.
Right.
So you see that the change is just so rapid that without lifelong learning, it will be very difficult to be a good manager and to keep up with the needs of the company.
Very true. And I always say, business is not getting easier. The challenges are not less. The world is more complicated than it's ever been, more politicized than it's ever been. Business is moving at a pace that's unreal, given globalization and how innovation is occurring all over the world now. If ever there is a need for graduate management education, it is now, and it will be in the future because things are never going to be easier. Yeah. What's your best advice for those looking to pursue an MBA?
Oh, I think it's probably one of the best decisions that you'll make. I did not do an MBA. I wanted to do my PhD in economics at the time, but I'm very envious of these people. I just see the energy and the excitement when they get together, and the learning. And sometimes, when I used to teach, I would go to the cafeteria and I see the students talking about interest rates and macroeconomics and debating things. And the process of learning, it just gives you, I think it as an individual, gives you so much happiness and satisfaction. And it's not only to say, okay, I'll be able to climb the steps in my career faster if I do an MBA. But I think that you have an opportunity to become a better individual, better person, but more satisfied with yourself if you go through this learning. So I would say definitely do it. When you go, wherever you go, just be humble, because it's I recently read a very interesting quote. I don't remember exactly who said it, but the smart person learns from everything and everybody. The good person learns from experience, and the stupid person knows everything. So it's so if you all these business schools that are out there, they have something to offer, and there are people around you that have something to offer, not only the faculty. And if you are humble enough and you're willing to learn, it will transform your life.
True, because I think, what you really get out of a good MBA program is, the intellectual curiosity about how things work and what makes people tick, and how you can get the best of others and the best of yourself. And that's something that is really special. And I think that's something that is enduring. That's a skill and an attribute about you as a person that makes you live a more fulfilled and better life. Ilian, it's been such a joy to see you again, even on Zoom instead of in person. I hope that I'll get to see you during your sabbatical. So I understand you're going to spend a year at Stanford, right?
Yes. So I'm moving there beginning of September. Yes. So
that's very exciting. I'm so happy for you. You're going to love it there. They're going to love you, and you won't have to be running around traveling all over the world like you do constantly. And I know you enjoy meeting with alumni, and maybe less enjoy asking for money, but it is the job of a dean.
No, actually, just a short comment on this. It's, in the beginning of my deanship, one of my colleagues said, "Oh, poor Ilian, now you have to go and beg for money." And then over time, I said, "Okay, I'm not begging for money. In fact, today, when I talk to some of our biggest donors, like Andre Hoffman, who created the Hoffman Institute for Business and Society, So he said that, he's just so satisfied to see the impact that he's making. So it's never, begging for money. It's always to say, look, most of the people that go through these business schools are philanthropic. The question is, what kind of impact do they want to have and through what?
True.
So especially the ones who are giving to research and seeing how actually that changes the frontier, or scholarships and seeing how you change lives. I'm particularly excited about going to people and talking about scholarships because I did all my education on scholarships. I mean, I came from Bulgaria, so didn't have any money. So it's without scholarships, without people who are generous and donate to my PhD program, I would not be sitting here. So I think that it is not asking for money when you can show the impact and see the impact is very rewarding. And yeah,
I agree. No, that's a really good attitude to have. And I love your answer to your fellow faculty person who said, "Oh, poor Ilian, now you're going to be begging for money." We've done a lot more than that.
Yeah.
All right, a pleasure as always. Good luck to you. And really, you've done a magnificent job. You should feel really good about it.
Thank you.
I hope you are really celebrated upon your departure and given a wonderful send-off that you'll remember for the rest of your life.
Thank you. Thank you very much, John. And thank you for all your questions and the questioning and the questioning of my answers. And, basically for this partnership over the last 10 years, really appreciate it. I think that I've learned a lot from poets and quants, from your stories and our discussions.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And for all of you out there, this is John Byrne with Poets and Quants. You've been watching our interview with the Dean of INSEAD, who has been the chief leader of the school for 10 years, is now leaving this summer, but his impact will last forever. Thank you for watching.